All right, it is now 2 o'clock Eastern, so I am going to go ahead and get this webinar started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today on how to convince your clients to add cloud backup for Office 365. My name is Sarah Vallon, and I am the event coordinator for Barracuda MSP. Just a quick note that we want to keep this webinar as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions that arise throughout the presentation, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A section or in the chat. We will have a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I will compile all the questions and they will be answered during that time. Today, I am joined by Kyle Morrison, who is a systems engineer with Barracuda MSP. Kyle has over 10 years of experience in the information technology field, supporting both hardware and software devices. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us today. And with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join. So today we're going to be focusing on the Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup and some reasons why you and your customers should consider using it. So first, we're going to start with the fact that cloud-to-cloud backup is delivered as a SaaS solution or software as a service. So there's many different benefits of using a SaaS-based solution. One of the key ones are customer deployments can be done in as little as minutes. So we find that our customers, and especially our MSP partners, they're looking for this kind of level of simplicity. And at the end of the session, I'll go through a brief demo just to show you how easy and simple it is to set up and use this product. And then with other SaaS solutions, there's no ongoing management activities. You guys don't have to worry about network planning around backups, planning compute optimization. You don't have to worry about software updates or agent deployments. Again, this all just accumulates into more time savings and ultimately reduces the complexity for you and your partners. And then as a SaaS solution, there's no extra storage to buy or anything to manage. Cloud-to-cloud backup simply uses cloud-based storage, and that remains unlimited. Unlimited retention, unlimited storage. There's no caps or limits or anything that you guys can hit. And then in addition with SaaS-based solutions, there's no single point of failure. So we're hosting all of the infrastructure. So it's not like you guys have to worry about any kind of local hardware for storage. Cloud-to-cloud backup from Barracuda protects key areas of Microsoft Office 365. So it gives us access to Backup Exchange, OneDrive for business, SharePoint, groups and teams. So the idea is if you lose a single file, you lose an entire folder, you lose a complete SharePoint site, cloud-to-cloud backup is very quickly and very easily able to get us back up and running. We deliver cloud-to-cloud backup as a SaaS solution because we think that data that starts in the cloud should stay in the cloud. So I'm going to spend a few minutes explaining why backing up Microsoft 365 is so important. And Microsoft's even gone on the record of recommending third party for backup for their applications. So let's start with the adoption aspect. So Microsoft 365 has obviously seen rapid increase in adoption over the past several years. According to a recent study, it said that the adoption rate's nearly 80% today. That's up from about 50% just the year before. So that means that 4 out of every 5 customers you guys have, and most likely 4 out of every 5 customers that you'll be speaking to in the future, are going to be using some aspect of Microsoft 365. In addition to the rapid adoption rate, the reality is that in 2020, most of the office work is being done by remote employees. That can be from a remote office. Most likely it's people working from their home office. And we've heard that in some cases, up to 90% of workers are currently working out of remote locations. So this means that more than ever, there's more data that's being created outside of a standard office environment. So for example, our partners at Microsoft recently shared the usage that in a single week during the beginning of COVID, Teams adoption went up over 40%. So backing up all that extra generated data that lives outside of any kind of server environment by these remote workers is crucial. So in early 2019, Barracuda did a survey as part of its World Backup Day. And during that survey, we actually found that about 40% of customers didn't understand that there's an importance in backing up Microsoft 365. We found a similar field study They did a similar survey, which found that about 1 in 4 businesses didn't understand that they need to back up 365. So that gives us anywhere around 25 to 40% of customers that don't know how crucial it is to make sure that Microsoft is being backed up. But the good news is over the past 18 months or so, we found that customer understanding around this area has started to improve. In any case, if any of our partners are unsure about the reason or the need to back up Microsoft 365, I'll share some more information with you. So like I mentioned earlier, in their 2020 terms and conditions, Microsoft actually points out that it's the customer's responsibility for backing up the Microsoft 365 content and data. So this is what's called a shared responsibility model, where Microsoft is responsible for the service, the uptime, the infrastructure, but it's the customer's responsibility for their own content and data. And this is something that we found that not all customers are aware of, this shared responsibility. In some cases, customers only learn about this, unfortunately, after they've had some kind of data loss event. So as MSP partners, it's really important that you guys take on some of the responsibility to educate your customers as their trusted advisors. So let's take a look now at the top 5 reasons why you as our partners should consider selling cloud-to-cloud backup. And I speak with partners on a regular basis, and I always take the opportunity to ask them, why are you guys interested in selling? Why are our customers asking, what's the importance of cloud-to-cloud backup to you? And here's the top 5. So the first one is just the high customer demand, right? So 80% of prospects have Office 365. That's at least 80% of the customer base that is a potential fit for this product. It's just a high demand. And it allows you guys to expand your offerings. So cloud-to-cloud backup gives our partners the opportunity to expand their Microsoft 365 offering into your existing customers. Barracuda Backup is a value add that can be attached anytime you sell Microsoft licenses. And we find that many of our partners that are offering Microsoft 365 migration and management are also naturally adding backup as a value-added extension. And our partners are always looking for ways to expand their install base. So selling the Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup to any new customers automatically with Microsoft 365 is a great way to kind of expand into new accounts. And we've made it easy to sell. So we tried to make a complex problem, which is backing up cloud environments, as simple as possible. And we find that it's become a natural addition to both existing and new customers. And it allows cross-sell opportunities. So I'll show you guys in a little bit. Cloud-to-cloud backup is just one of the several products that we're offering as part of our Essentials bundle. So it makes it really easy to cross-sell different products once you're offering backup. And when we talk about things like easy to sell, there's a few key areas. So obviously there's high demand just due to the sheer number of customers that are using Microsoft 365. Our partners like the simplicity of the pricing model. So our cloud-to-cloud backup is sold per user per month. So really simple, kind of the same way that Microsoft is billing. And then Microsoft 365 environments are pretty complex to back up. So the Barracuda offering simplifies this for our managed service providers. And selling Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup is easy. Our partners can sell it as a standalone solution, or like I mentioned, you can sell it as part of our Essentials Complete Protection bundle. And just a little breakdown. So Essentials is basically made up of 3 product lines. There's email filtering, which includes things like ATP and email continuity. We have cloud archiving, and then the cloud backup piece. So this can be sold standalone. This can be sold in different bundles with these different products, which makes it really easy to cross-sell and upsell. So let's turn our attention to the top 5 reasons why the customer needs cloud-to-cloud backup. So the first and probably the most important is that end users make mistakes. And I would say this is majority of the restore scenarios that we run into. It's common, it happens all the time, but it's important that we're able to meet that customer need. It doesn't matter if maybe they're just trying to clean up space on their drive, or they're trying to clean out their inbox. We all know that end users are going to make mistakes, and they're going to look to IT professionals like yourselves for assistance to get that data back. Recently, one of our customers actually shared a story. So one of the executives had received a message from Exchange that let them know that their inbox was filling up. So naturally, they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to receive any email while they were away for a trip. So they actually took it upon themselves to make sure that they would free up the space. And while they were traveling, they deleted the entire contents of their inbox. It wasn't until they got back to the office where then it became the IT's responsibility to go ahead and restore that data. They were using the cloud-to-cloud backup, and it made it really simple and really quick to get that data back for that user. In the end users make mistakes, things happen, and we need to be able to protect against that. So one of our partners using cloud-to-cloud backup, interesting quote. So the human error never goes away. And we've twice had to restore data since we rolled out Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup. On one of those occasions, users were syncing Sharepoint with OneDrive, and they deleted something from the computer, which then removed it from the cloud. It was all restored in under 2 hours. Second reason is malicious actors. So in addition to end users making mistakes, it's very common that customers may encounter a range of different kinds of malicious actors. This can range anywhere from account takeover situations where maybe a hacker gets access to an Office 365 tenant and starts deleting data. It could be a disgruntled former employee who maybe still has access to their account. While these situations are rare, recovery from malicious actors is still possible with the cloud-to-cloud backup solution. And because you have that separation of data in Office 365 and the backup data, even if somebody does something to their Office 365 account, Barracuda still keeps a copy of it and ensures that we can recover from it. So same idea. So Stephen says if someone leaves the company and deletes all of their OneDrive and SharePoint information, it's still securely stored in Barracuda's cloud, and we can pull it back at any time. Reason 3, so with our backup products, we strive to make potentially complex tasks very easy. And in this case, we're talking about backup and recovery and ultimately data retention. So I don't know if anyone's actually looked at the Microsoft retention policies, but don't worry, we'll kind of walk through it on this slide. That's a little overwhelming. So basically the point of this is to show that Microsoft's native retention can be pretty complex, pretty overwhelming. Email has somewhere between a 14 and 30-day retention, depending on hard versus soft delete. OneDrive and SharePoint have up to 93 days in some cases, while Teams has its own separate set of retention rules. Very tough to remember, tough to know. But when we look at all of these retention policies, we're basically looking at a maximum of 3 months. Is this going to be enough for users that may delete stuff, for malicious activity? What happens if the CEO deletes something and needs something on day 94? And that's where the big question marks start to come up. So cloud-to-cloud backup for Barracuda takes this complexity and turns it into a very simple approach. We have the ability to keep everything in the backup system according to a simple retention policy. This way, you guys as admins don't need to worry about retaining the data in case any of the data gets lost or deleted. It'll be in the backup for as long as you want it to be. So you see the right-hand column, our default retention for everything is keep data forever. Very easy to remember. So sometimes we run into legal or compliance perspectives where customers need to comply with certain data compliance standards, things like GDPR or maybe California Protection Act. Data governance tools within Microsoft 365 are not really available in all of the tiers of licensing, and they can often be complicated to manage. A backup solution can be considered as an extra safety net to try to meet these compliance standards without having to go through the extra complexity of the built-in standards or having to add costs just to upgrade to enterprise level licenses. And then lastly, as we discussed to start our session today, Microsoft themselves recommend the use of a third-party backup for Office 365 data. So we've gone through, we've talked about the top 5 reasons why partners should carry cloud-to-cloud backup. We talked about the top 5 reasons why customers themselves need cloud-to-cloud backup. Let's change direction here and I can show you a bit of a product demo just to take a quick look. So for anyone unfamiliar, this is the Barracuda Cloud Control portal. Looking at the service, it's very easy for me to add a data source. So it all just takes a couple of minutes for us to go ahead. I can back up OneDrive, Exchange, SharePoint groups. Simply all I need to do is select the backup source, enter my domain, and hit authorize. That brings me to Microsoft single sign-in, where we're going to create an API token or connection to that environment. That's going to handle all of the backup processing that we need. We're not caching these credentials. We're just using them to create the token. So if this user is removed, if they're no longer with the company, if the password changes, it doesn't change backups. They just continue to run. And then backups are based around schedules. So you guys are in control of when do backups run. These can run as frequently as once per hour throughout the day. Very easy to set the schedule. Once we set the schedule, they just run automatically. And then, like I mentioned, we can set retention policies. So by default, we're actually going to keep everything forever. If you guys do have customers that are part of compliance, sometimes people like to age data off so it's not recoverable longer than it legally has to be. You can certainly set that up, but out of the box, we're going to keep everything forever. So kind of set it and forget it. And then really easy in a restore scenario. Everything we have is based on point in time recovery. Very easy for us to filter month, year, day, time of day even. And it just allows us to go back and guarantee that we're going to get that specific file or specific folder the customer's looking for. And then in terms of recovery, we can restore everything from an entire user account or an entire SharePoint site, entire OneDrive, all the way down to an individual file or folder or granular message. And then there's a couple different use cases. So the first one we talked about, the major one, the most common one is somebody's deleted something, modified something, moved it to a different folder and forgot where they put it. For whatever reason, they need it back into that original location. So we can go ahead, find the data we need, and restore back to that original spot. Another use case that comes up pretty often, though, is what happens if somebody leaves the company, right? So sometimes everything's converted to shared mailboxes. Um, Sometimes the account needs to be deleted so that it's not taking up licenses that aren't otherwise needed. Whether or not the user still exists in the tenant, Barracuda will keep the data on our side and it'll be recoverable based on the retention policy set. So for example, maybe this user is no longer with the company. We want to give someone else access to the data. It's very easy for me to find another account, which I can then restore the data to. So it makes it very, very easy to go from one location to the other. So that's kind of it. In just a few minutes, we've gone through setting up backups, backups run on schedule, and the simplicity in the restore process. So we have some white papers around Barracuda backup and specifically our complete protection model. And then Smarter MSP is a way for you guys to sign up and make sure that you're constantly getting up-to-date industry news. And for any questions, we'll go through a live Q&A in a minute. I think I saw a few chat items come in, but for any further questions, if you guys want to go into a deeper dive, feel free to reach out to our sales team or visit our website and we can get you guys more information.
All right. Thanks so much, Kyle. And yes, I did compile a few questions that were being asked. So I will dive into the first question. So the first question is there documentation about what Microsoft 365 services and what data is recoverable with cloud-to-cloud backup, or some sort of cheat sheet that can help with individual questions from clients about specific portions from their infrastructure?
There is. So I don't know if you guys have ever visited our campus site. It's campus.barracuda.com. That's our knowledge base and it has a lot of great information. There should be some articles in there, and I believe on our marketing page as well. There's information about specifically what is Barracuda backing up within Office 365. So you guys can share that with your customers.
Okay, perfect. The next question is each entity like Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, etc., are they set up separately, but are they part of the same licenses, or how does that work?
Yep, good question. So just like we walked through the demo to set up Exchange, I would repeat that process for OneDrive and SharePoint. They're all licensed the same. So we look at licensing as per user. So even though the user may have Exchange and OneDrive and SharePoint, it's still a singular user. So we can back up any or all of those applications.
Okay, next question. What's the reason for why a third-party backup is more beneficial than what's already included with Microsoft 365? And then I guess the follow-up to that would be, can you back up Teams and SharePoint site contents as well?
So I'll answer the second part first. Yep, with the current offering, we can back up Teams and SharePoint site contents. The benefit of having a third party, a couple of them that we covered. Another one is kind of the separation of Office 365 and keeping a secondary copy elsewhere. Kind of the equivalent of, if you think back in the day with on-site backups, um, keeping the local data on the same storage as the the backup copy. And then in addition to that, it's that shared responsibility model that we talked about at the beginning, right? So Microsoft is responsible for making sure that the infrastructure is up. They're responsible for making sure there's uptime with the service. But when data is deleted, that's on you and the customer. So we looked at the retention a little bit. The defaults for Exchange data, for example, are 14 to 30 days. SharePoint and OneDrive data is 90 days. I've seen a ton of use case scenarios where somebody may have deleted something on a project they were working on previously and didn't realize it for 4 or 5 months. In that case, the data would be outside of that Microsoft retention, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, to try to get help to get that back without some kind of third-party solution.
All right. Next question. Are the restore tools available to end users or just the administrators?
Good question. So the backup piece is an admin-driven product. So any admin, preferably, would be the one running the recoveries for the users.
Okay. And can you restore backups from one tenant to another?
That's an interesting one. So no, not from one tenant to another. We can restore to different users or accounts within the same tenant.
Okay, great. Sorry, we got a bunch of questions. You can keep them coming, everyone on the call. This is definitely your time to get your questions answered. Okay. And as far as the pricing model, is like the cloud backup similar to any other like Barracuda pricing, or can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, good question. So everything from the Barracuda MSP side is based on monthly billing, and the backup falls in line with that. And then the backup is in the same tier as our Essentials and Sentinel product line, where it's based per user. So when we talk about per user, we tried to match up with how Microsoft is billing. So we think about it as active employees or users at the company. So things like shared mailboxes, user aliases, distribution lists, all of that would be supported and backed up. They don't incur their own separate license.
Okay, great. And then another question that came in was, my customers get audited and need to perform e-discovery. E-discovery, will this help with that?
Good question. So there's an aspect of compliance that we talked about within here where we can offer that long-term retention. If you remember the pricing breakdown or the licensing breakdown that we had, backup is part of a product bundle that we call Essentials. So another part of that bundle is archiving, which is for compliance. So that allows us to do things like advanced searching for e-discovery and ensures that we're journaling messages so that we always have an immutable copy of all of those messages available.
All right, I think we have time for one last question. So how can this help me if Microsoft has any more outages?
That's a good one, yeah. So I know that they've had a couple outages in the last couple of weeks. I think from a backup perspective, it ensures that we keep a copy of data on our end. Um, I think that also speaks nicely to that Essentials bundle that I was talking about. So that in addition to the backup and the archiving, there's also an email filtering perspective. And part of that email filter is built-in email continuity. So anyone that was using that product when any of those outages occurred we would actually automatically fail over to make sure that messages weren't dropped. And it would allow users to log in and continue not only viewing messages that are being spooled, but reply to messages or compose new messages as we go.
All right, we just got a couple more questions coming through. So, just a follow up on the pricing. So, our license model is per user, but is there any limit on the number of Microsoft Team channels that you can be backed up?
Nope, same thing for SharePoint too. So even though sites are separate from users, there's no separate cost for those. So I would consider those almost to be a nice value add. Everyone starts with Exchange backup, so the other services are kind of included, in my opinion, on the same price. So no separate cost for those.
All right, and then one last question. If you don't want to put the data back into Office or wherever it is going, can you download a package or zip file with your data?
Yep, good question. So most often we see restore either to that original or alternate location. There is a download option for all of the services as well. So if for some reason somebody needs access to the data outside of that Office 365 tenant, then the data can be downloaded directly from that web browser we were looking at.
All right, well, I think that was all the questions that came in. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We are recording this webinar, so we will send out a recording of it after the fact. So if you would like to look at anything over again, or or if you have any other additional questions and may have been addressed in the presentation, you'll have access to that. And then if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to sales@barracudamsp.com. They that kind of funnels in and will get you in touch with the correct person who can answer any of your questions. But I want to thank you everyone for your time today. We really appreciate you spending the afternoon with us or morning or wherever you are. So thanks again, and we hope to see everyone on another webinar again soon. And also, Kyle, thank you so much for the webinar today. It was super informative. I hope everyone had some takeaways.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate it.